All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to learn one formula to write our percent equation. It's going to be in the form of a proportion, all right? And what it will do is it will allow you to answer every one of these questions, no matter how it's phrased and no matter how it is worded. Because if I only give you a few examples, all right, and then you see one that I haven't done an example for, then you're not going to know, oh, am I supposed to multiply? Am I supposed to divide? What am I supposed to do? All right, so this is our percent equation. So let's just call it our percent equation. And it will be a proportion. It's going to be is over of equals percent over 100. Okay, and second block told me you did do this in middle school, that you saw this last year. All right, so then that's why I'm saying it should be review. All right, this is going to be our formula. We're going to take the questions. We're going to find what number is associated with the word is. We're going to find what number is associated with of, what the percent is, and then we're going to plug it in, cross multiply down, and solve. Okay, because we've already last week we practiced how to solve a proportion. Okay, so the questions are going to be phrased as sentences. All right, this one might say, what percent of 140 is 84? All right, so the thing is, that question is going to change. All right, they can phrase them lots of different ways. They can ask for the percent. They can ask for the is number. They can ask for the of number. All right, so what we want is we want to be able to have one formula for every question, no matter how they phrase the question. All right, now my suggestion is that you always look and see if there is a given percent in the problem. All right, no percent sign, no percent sign. They don't give a percent. Matter of fact, right here it says what percent. So I look for the percent first, and then I put a box around it. In this case, they're asking what percent. All right, that's what we're going to solve for. That's what we don't know. So since we're in algebra, we're going to let that be x. All right, now we're going to go the rest of the way through the sentence, and when we're going to associate a number with each word, and we're going to do it the one that sits next to it. All right, now, logically, if I don't want to box in 140 and say 140 is my is word, because then that means 84 and of would be way far away from each other. So if I keep going left to right, what percent of 140, so that means that 140 is going to be substituted in for the of number. All right, and then if I finish reading the sentence, is 84, the 84 is associated with the is. All right, you need to write these sentences down, box the stuff in. All right, now we're going to write a proportion, and then we're going to cross multiply down and solve. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this proportion, and I'm just going to fill in all my numbers. All right, what number is? So 84 goes in the top left-hand corner. All right, what number is of? 140. All right, did they give me the percent in the question? Nope, that's what I'm trying to solve, so I'm going to put an x in for my percent. All right, the formula says there is a 100 in the bottom right-hand corner all the time. That is always a 100 every time. Okay, now from last week, we learned how to cross-multiply down. When we cross-multiplied down, I did the little arrows to help you remember that you are cross-multiplying down. All right, 140 times x is 140x. The equal sign comes straight down. 84 times 100, hopefully you can do that and not grab your calculator. 8,400. All right, now when you get to there, every time when you cross multiply down with a proportion, you get a one-step equation. All right, in which case what? We divide both sides by 140. Divide by 140. The 140s cross out, okay, so I'm assuming you are going to use your calculator on that. So 8,400 divided by 140 is going to give you 60. Okay, so we get x equals 60. However, that's not the answer to the question. I need to write down 60% because it's asking for a percent. So I have to add the percent sign on it. Now, I will not add a percent sign every time. I'm only going to add a percent when it asks for a percent. Okay, if it does not ask for a percent, then I'm not going to do that. All right, now let's do another one. All right, because like I said, the question every time can change. Okay, so let's take a look at, we'll do another one together and then we'll let you do one by yourself. All right, what is 0.73% of 125? Okay, so totally different question. All right, the question is going to change every time. Okay, so you write it down. Then my recommendation is go through and see if they gave you a number with a percent sign. All right, did they give us a percent in this one? Yes, they did. The percent is the 0.73%. Now, when you box that in, it is the percent. So don't box it with one of the words that are next to it, because a percent is the percent. All right. Now, hopefully that makes sense then, that the of number has to be the 125. And then what is, all right, what is the question. So the is number is going to be what? X, because that's what we're trying to solve for. So that's going to be my X. All right. And then let's go ahead and write the formula down again right here. Is over of equals percent over 100, because that was on my other piece of paper. So let's write that down. Okay. All right. So top left-hand corner is the is number. So what am I going to put in the top left-hand corner of my proportion? X. What is going to go in the bottom left-hand corner for of? 125. Percent. What's the percent? 0.73. So whatever the number is, write it down. And then 100 always goes in that bottom right-hand corner. This is like the most wonderful formula ever was, because no matter what the sentence is, you identify the numbers correctly, put them in the right spots, and then you're going to be able to cross multiply down and solve this. Okay, now I don't necessarily expect you to draw these arrows. Okay, I'm drawing the arrows just to visually make you think a certain way while we're doing the lesson. Okay, now you're probably going to take 125 and multiply by 0.73 on your calculator. All right, if I did it correctly just now, I got 91.25. When I multiply 100 times the x, 100x. What number do I divide by? We divide by 100. Okay, so divide by 100. Again, you shouldn't need a calculator, but if you did, you could go ahead and use a calculator. It basically is going to move your decimal 2 places to the left. So I'm going to get a 0.9125 equals x. All right, now do I have to add a percent sign to this answer? No, because it didn't ask for the percent. The percent was given. So do not just automatically always put a percent after it, because that doesn't make sense. Okay. All right, now we're going to let you do one by yourself. I'm going to try to squeeze it in right here. Let's do 32 is 80% of what number? All right, so you box it in. I'll give you a minute. You box it in, write the proportion, cross multiply down, and see what you get. All right, so going left to right across. All right, so the 30, well, here, no, let's not go left to right, because that's not the thing I did on the last one. What's the first thing you boxed in? Let's ask that question. What's the first thing you boxed in?
32 is.
Okay, so you did the 32 is. What was the first question I asked you on this one? What was the first thing I asked you, Alec? Yeah, I asked you, ask yourself, is there a percent? There is, so that's the only thing that gets boxed in. You are correct when you said the 32 is. All right, sometimes it just will prevent you from making a mistake if you box that percent in first by itself. Okay, the 32 does get boxed in with the is. All right, and then the of what number gets boxed in as well. Thank you. All right, and then the of what number is the x. All right, so by coincidence, we're finding the of number this time. All right, so see, every time something is different. Every time the sentence is different, that proportion is going to look a little bit different. All right, so in the is part, what number goes in for is the 32. All right, what am I going to put in for of? What am I going to put in for the percent? And then a 100 is always on that bottom right-hand corner. Okay, again, we're going to cross multiply down. I do not expect you to draw these arrows. All right, because for the most part, that'll just clutter your problem up. All right, 80 times x is 80x. 32 times 100? 3,200. All right, every time you get a one-step equation, okay, every time. Divide by 80, divide by 80. Again, I would like to think some of you could do that in your head, but if not, that's okay. Use your calculator. You get x equals 40. Do I have to add the percent sign? No. All right, so that should have been review from middle school, and even if it wasn't, it's an easy enough concept as long as you memorize this. But notice, every example we've done, the sentence has been phrased differently. That x can show up in any of those three spots. It'll never be in the bottom right-hand corner because that's always the number 100. But it could be anywhere in the other three spots. You cross multiply down, find the number you're missing. All right, so relatively straightforward. Okay, questions. How many people got 40 on that one? Show of hands. We get 40? Okay, relatively simple. Good showing there. All right, now we are going to do one more concept because it's a relatively simple one. We're going to do something called percent of change. All right, now percent of change, we're either going to have a percent of increase or we're going to have a percent of decrease. We're either going to have a percent of increase or we're going to have a percent of decrease. And it depends on what the numbers are doing. If the numbers are getting larger, it'll be a percent of increase. Because we're trying to figure out, well, by what percentage are they increasing? If the two numbers you're given are getting smaller, then it's a percent of decrease. We're trying to figure out by what percentage did the numbers get smaller. Okay, so we've got percent of increase, percent of decrease. All right, now I'm going to do steps. Okay, I'm just going to try to real short steps here. We're going to subtract, will be step one. And you're going to subtract like normal. Big number minus small number. You just want a positive number. Okay, so you're going to subtract. All right, then step two, you're going to divide by the original amount, or the original, let's say original number, because it wouldn't have to be money. All right, and then you're going to move decimal point 2 places right, because that makes a percent. That was a skill, hopefully, that you learned in middle school. To convert a decimal to a percent, you move the decimal point 2 places to the right. Okay, and then your book's probably going to say round to the nearest whole percent, round to the nearest tenth, round to the nearest hundredth. So whatever the directions are in the textbook, whatever the direction is in Math Excel, that's what you're going to do. All right, now I'm going to let you do this vast majority, on your calculator, okay? Because we just want concepts here. All right. So we're just going to go straightforward. How do you crank out percent of change? Let's suppose you're in a store and some item originally cost $29.99. All right, and then they put on sale, and now that goes down to $24.49. So the numbers decreased, right? $29.99 down to $24.49. That means decrease. So this one is going to be a percent of decrease. We want to know, well, by what percentage did that decrease by? All right, so use your calculator. All right, $29.99 minus $24.99. Okay, leave that number in the calculator. How much is it? 5.5? Okay, so I'm going to write something down just so we're not doing this totally in our head. 29.99 minus 24.49. Your calculator gave you 5.5 because it took off the 0. If you're doing it by hand, you'd have a 0 on there. All right, now you're going to then leave that number in your calculator window. You're going to then divide by the original number. The original number means the number that you started with. All right, we started with $29.99. So leave the 5.5 in your calculator, hit divide, 29.99. You get a great big long decimal. All right, so I got 0.1833944, and that keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. Okay, so you will get every time a great big long decimal. Third step, move decimal point 2 places to the right. So I'm going to take that decimal point, hop it 2 places to the right. All right, so now it's going to be in between 18 and the 3. Now, let's say it says round to the nearest 10th. Okay, I don't know what it's going to say round to in the direction, so you'll have to read. But let's say it said round to the nearest 10th. So I'm going to write 18.3. Now, this is a percent of change, so I need to add what symbol? A percent. 18.3%. Now, is it a percent of decrease or a percent of increase? Decrease, so it's 18.3% decrease. But highly, highly calculator oriented. And that was just like, I can put the story problem around it. I could have wrote it out in words. It could have been a story problem. Okay. The pair of tennis shoes was originally $29.99. There was a sale. It went down to $24.49. Now, what's the percent of change? Okay, now let's do another one. And then let's do no money. Let's just do 2 random numbers. All right, let's say we start with 27, and then we go up to a 48. All right, so is this one going to be a percent of increase or a percent of decrease? Increase because the numbers got bigger. Okay. All right, now, first step is supposed to subtract. So what minus what? Did we say? You all talked at the same time. I couldn't hear you. So 48 minus 27? Take big number minus small number. Just good old-fashioned how you're going to subtract those 2 numbers. 48 minus 27. Doesn't really matter which one they provided you first. You're always going to do your big number minus your small number. Okay, so that is 21. I really did not need a calculator on that, but that's okay if you did. All right, now, you always divide by the original, so leave that 21 in the calculator, put it in the calculator. What number am I going to choose to divide by? 27, because that's the original number. That's the original number. This is the original number. In other words, it's the number I started with, so I'm going to hit divide by 27. Again, every time when you do that, you are going to get some great big long decimal. My calculator showed 0.777777777, and then finally it put an 8 at the end of my calculator window. Because it what? It rounded up, didn't it? That's how it got to an 8. All right, now, third step, move decimal 2 places to the right. 1, 2. All right, let's say we're rounding to the nearest 10th again. Okay, the directions will tell you what to round to, but let's just say it says round to the nearest 10th. So I'm going to write 77 point, round to the nearest 10th, 8. Because that 7 is going to make the 8 go up. Then I have to remember to add what mathematical symbol? Percent sign. Now, go back up and look. Did we say increase or decrease? Increase.